Hello, I'm Pastor Charles Hamilton, former CBF intern, and I'm glad to be here to welcome you to this week's CBF Gathering. There's a lot going on in the world and a lot to be discouraged by. However, although we cannot meet together physically, we can still be with each other virtually. And I just want to take this time to read from Dr. Emmanuel Bacall's book, When All God's Children Get Together, a word of encouragement from a song that he put in the prologue. It says, when all God's children get together, when all God's children get together, what a time, what a time, what a time. We're going to sit down at the welcome table. What a time, what a time, what a time. When preachers and deacons get together, what a time, what a time, what a time. We're going to sit down at the welcome table. What a time, what a time, what a time. When black folks and white folks, and I'm going to add when Latino, Hispanic, and Asian folks get together, what a time, what a time, what a time. We're going to sit down at the welcome table. What a time, what a time, what a time. When all God's children get together, what a time, what a time, what a time. I just want to encourage you to think about the fact that although we can't be together physically, we can enjoy the time we have together virtually. Something we say here at New Morning Light Baptist Church is this joy I have. The world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. We're thankful for what God has done, what God is doing, and what God will do. And I'm just thankful to be able to be here with you for community gathering virtually. God bless you.
Hello, CBF family. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this Tuesday night. And I love the fact that CBF is providing these opportunities for people across the fellowship to get together. We are, many of us, looking for any opportunity we can to connect or reconnect in a time in which we are watching gatherings and events go by the wayside. It seems like on a weekly basis that we had been counting on. And so good to be with you here. Tonight I am taking a look at Luke chapter 24, verses 13 through 35. That is the walk to Emmaus. It's a lectionary passage for this week. And as you know, if you're familiar with the story, it involves these two sort of solitary and lonely, pitiful figures who were walking on this road to a little village called Emmaus, about a 7-mile walk from Jerusalem. They are walking with heavy hearts because of the things that have happened in the last few days, but especially on that day in Jerusalem with regard to the empty tomb. And at that point, all the mystery and the questions surrounding what has happened to Jesus and why the stone has been rolled away and where his body may have been. Larger picture, as you can imagine, includes what is going to happen with their movement. And to dig even deeper to a darker place, they probably are wondering things like, has everything we've been believing been true, not true? What does Jesus' death mean for all of this that we had begun to put our faith in? Well, it is a heavy walk that we watch in the scripture. And then suddenly this figure comes up and joins the walk with them. And maybe we need to be easy on these two for not recognizing that Jesus is with them. For one thing, we have the mystery of this note that they were not allowed. Their eyes were kept from recognizing him, from seeing who he was. But also their hearts were so heavy, their minds were so preoccupied. And we humans have an ability to sort of tune out and not pay attention to what's going on around us, especially when we're this distracted, this preoccupied, this weighed down in our souls. Let me make an admission that I'm going to regret immediately, because for years I'm going to hear about this from some of you all. But my wife knows that my celebrity crush for years has probably been one woman, Jane Seymour. Go ahead and snicker, but that's sort of been my celebrity crush. Maybe not so much Jane Seymour in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, maybe more Jane Seymour in the James Bond movie or some other things that she's done. At any rate, I digress. One night, Elizabeth said, look, Jane's going to be in town. She's doing an art gallery thing. I'm going to take you so you can meet her. That was really cool. And so we went to dinner and went to the art gallery, and what they had not bothered to say in their posters and their publicity was that the only way you were going to get a meet and greet with her was to either buy the book that she was promoting, and it of itself was pretty expensive, or you could buy one of her paintings. Now, her paintings started at about $1,000, and many of them were upwards of $10,000. I was a fan, but I was not that much of a fan, and so pretty quickly we realized that we were not going to be part of the meet and greet. We did decide we'd just walk in and take a look at some of her art, and so we did. And we found ourselves over in this little alcove where there were probably 8 or 10 of her paintings hanging on 3 sides of us, and we'd stepped into it and we're looking at them. And eventually, out of my periphery, I realized that a third person had come and joined us. A small person was standing there with us, and we began to talk about the art and wondering what this little girl was doing and what this flower was symbolizing and why it was placed there. And eventually the person who was with us spoke up and said, well, have you ever considered that what the little girl might be feeling is this? Or could you imagine that the flower that was picked to be there symbolized that? And finally, after a few minutes, I turned and looked around, and sure enough, we were standing there and had been for a moment or two looking at Jane's art with Jane Seymour. She ended up spending about 10 minutes with us there and in other parts of the gallery and explaining what had been going into her paintings. And as you can imagine, I left there that night feeling like it had been a pretty good evening. We humans have an ability to dial in, to be distracted, to be weighed down, to just not pay attention to what's happening all around us. And sometimes we just don't notice what we should notice. These two are walking along and they don't understand that Jesus is with them. He starts to move on, but they persuade him to come to their house. One of the heaviest lines happens as that walk is concluding, because one of them even makes the observation that I had hoped that he was the one that would redeem Israel. If you're not feeling for them so far in the story, which most of us who read that are, you are once that line comes out. It's one of the saddest lines in all of Scripture to me. Their movement, their hopes, it's all dashed. But Jesus begins to explain what really is what, begins to try to set some things into perspective, and still they don't seem to know who he is until they sit down at the table with him. Go look through the Gospels and notice that most of the moments of recognition post-resurrection were when Jesus said something or did something that was very personal, very unique to the individual who finally awakens and realizes that they are with Jesus. He calls Mary's name. He offers Thomas the chance to touch him, even though Thomas doesn't take him up on that. In every one of these awakenings, seems to have this very personal moment that brings alive something in someone who otherwise is too heavy of soul to see him. Well, the applications are many, and you'll have your own. One obvious one is that we can sometimes not realize who is with us, and maybe we should pay more attention to what's going on and who is around us. But I wonder what it is that is on your plate right now that you could take off of your plate if you were willing to, and maybe you should, and life would look different to you. I wonder what it is that I need to share with someone or hand off to someone so that I can put my eyes on something else that needs my attention, but I've been given too much of my attention to this other thing. I wonder what it is I've convinced myself of, I've begun to believe. I wonder what it is that I need to look at differently so that life will take on a whole different feel, take on a whole different appearance. Jesus appeared to two people on the Emmaus Road, and the time he spent with them was absolutely a life changer for them and for us who get to read the story. Read Luke chapter 24, 13 through 35 again for yourself and journey with those two. Put yourself there in their shoes and wonder what it would have been like and what it is that could, even now, give you a new sense of awakening in your faith, in your hope during a COVID-19 season of physical distancing, and what you need to look at a little differently. Not so much Jane Seymour on Dancing with the Stars, maybe Wedding Crashers. I don't know. Oh well. You all take care. We love you, CBF family. Can't wait to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hi, we are Cindy and Eddy Ruble, and we live in Penang, Malaysia. We are in the 36th day of a movement control order. Under the order, we are allowed out one person at a time to shop for food and medical supplies. When I go to the grocery store these days, my temperature is taken before I enter the parking deck, and again before I enter the grocery store. Then I'm given a squirt of hand sanitizer and a pair of gloves to wear while I shop. I'm appreciative of the efforts that are being taken to keep us all safe. So although it's difficult, I understand why we're not allowed to leave our home even for exercise except to walk a dog. The movement control order is working because 95% of the people here are adhering to the order, as we know it saves lives. Malaysia has about 5,500 reported cases of COVID-19 and 92 deaths. Overall, Malaysia has been doing a commendable job in managing the pandemic up to this point.
The island of Penang, where we live, with a population of 700,000, has 119 reported cases and only one death. We have first-rate hospitals here, and generally we feel as safe as we would anywhere else in the world. We are staying at home, cooking most of our own meals, and following Malaysian government guidelines for working from home. As CBF Field Personnel and area coordinators, we have administrative responsibilities for CBF Field Personnel throughout Asia. Since early January, we have been closely following the outbreak of the coronavirus. In late January, we helped to facilitate the evacuation of CBF Field personnel in the country with an exponential rise in cases. Most of our field personnel in Asia have made the decision to shelter in place, while others have moved up scheduled partnership development assignments in the U.S. so as to depart while flights were still available. Access to adequate medical care, if needed, was one of the criteria considered in making those decisions.
In addition to our work as area coordinators, I have the pleasure of working with Malaysian social workers on the front line of helping survivors of child sexual abuse, sexual assault, and domestic violence. We are all adjusting to working from home under the movement control order. Last week, I led a Zoom training for social workers on coping with fear and anxiety, as those are issues not only for our clients, but for all of us during this pandemic.
I serve as CBF's International Disaster Response Coordinator. From a disaster response angle, the global health crisis caused by COVID-19 is unlike anything we have seen in our lifetime, but it is also creating a massive economic crisis, which will be especially devastating in the developing world. Around the world, there are millions of day laborers who feed their families day by day based on their daily wages. Refugees and migrant workers will be particularly hard hit, as they have few resources and often no government assistance. I also represent CBF on the Baptist World Alliance COVID-19 Operational Planning Group. We are working together to strategically put into place resources, training materials, and a structure to assist Baptist conventions and partners around the globe as they help Baptist churches and surrounding communities. With this pandemic stretching into months, the needs will continue to grow.
Our family lives life on 2 continents as we have 2 college-age children in the States. Our daughter's senior year of college drastically changed when her school closed and went online. Although it was the right decision, as you can imagine, there is grief in the loss of those final months with friends and the celebrations that typically come at the end of 4 years of college. Because we live overseas and our daughter is on call for the Sexual Assault Center where she has interned for the last 4 years, she has been given special permission to stay in her on-campus housing. Our son, who was in his freshman year of college, was enjoying his technology internship at a nonprofit helping the survivors of human trafficking. We grieve with him the loss of the rest of his first year college experience. He is now living with my sister, who is a nurse in North Carolina. We ask you to pray for the safety of our children in Georgia and North Carolina, and for peace of mind as they are far away from us. With aging parents, one in a long-term care facility, like many of you, we have concerns for the well-being of our extended family. We ask for prayer for our family in all of their places. We ask you to join us in prayer for vulnerable people living on the edges of society, for whom sheltering in place does not allow them to stock up and stay home. We join you in praying for the health and well-being of all of your families, wherever they may be. Stay home and stay safe. We care about all of you.
Hi, I'm Kelley Woggon, Director of Pastoral Care at Norton Healthcare in Louisville, Kentucky, and I've been a CBF-endorsed chaplain since 2002.
Hello, my name is Brian Wilson. I am chaplain to the Adult Oncology Unit at Norton Hospital, and I have been a CBF-endorsed chaplain since 2012.
Norton Healthcare is a large system in Louisville, Kentucky that includes 16,000 employees, 4 adult hospitals, a pediatric hospital, and dozens of outpatient facilities. As you can imagine, the healthcare chaplaincy world has changed dramatically over the last couple of months, and it changed quickly. Primarily, those changes come from our extreme isolation requirements of our patients that often keep us out of the room as well, and our visitation policy, which means basically few, if any, visitors at all. Pastoral care is all about the human face-to-face connection. It's about holding a hand, reading body language, knowing when we can be silent, standing around the bedside of a passed away loved one with the family, telling stories and holding hands and offering prayer. All of that has changed, and we've had to find new ways to minister.
The first COVID death that occurred in our hospital I attended, and I remember the stark contrast in attending that death and providing care to the family who could not be with their loved one and were grieving in isolation. Not only were they grieving in isolation from their loved one, but they could not be with each other in their grief. And so the care that we are accustomed to providing in helping families to provide love and honor and blessing in the leave taking of their loved ones could not be done in the same way. And so caring to them over the phone was a very different reality for me as a chaplain. That reality was also different for the staff, who in a very sacred way were honoring the patient and the family with their tears. Although there are so many ways coronavirus has impacted all of us and has impacted the care that we provide, there are also celebrations that highlight the work we do. And one recent celebration came when I visited a 73-year-old lady who'd gotten off the ventilator. She had been in our ICU for 26 days, and when I walked into the room, I could feel the vibrancy of her spirit as she celebrated having gotten off the ventilator and having received excellent care from our medical team, from our staff, from everyone who entered her room. One of the things she told me that really stuck out for me, she said, you know, if you stop and listen, God will prepare you for what's to come. This is just another part of my testimony, and I'm going to tell my story.
That's great. What I hope for me and for our staff is that when the dust settles from all of this, that we will be better chaplains because of what we've learned, because of the creative ways that we have begun to use technology to be the hands, the feet, the ears of God as we continue to serve those who come to us in need.
Church members, thank you. Thank you for all the ways that you have reached out to each other through text message, phone calls, sidewalk talk, and baked goods. Thank you for your continued financial support of your congregation, even as the church has left the building. Thank you for inviting your family and friends and neighbors to worship with you online. And thank you for encouraging your ministers. They're amazing, aren't they? Practically overnight, we asked them to take what they had been doing and do it in a way that they had never done it before. And they are the reason that we still have our faith communities, even as we have settled into our homes. They've learned new technologies. They're recording sermons. They're live streaming Bible studies. They're packing Sunday school bags for kids, and they're inventing online games for youth. They're spending untold hours behind the scenes in one-on-one conversations of learning what the needs are in our community and connecting church members. They are coordinating volunteers so that the church members who need a little extra help can get it. Ministers, on behalf of all of the congregation, thank you. One of the greatest joys of our work at CBF is getting to talk to ministers. Over the last 6 weeks, we have heard deep grief from the hurt and the pain in your communities. And yet at the same time, we have heard abounding joy for the churches they serve. They are loving all of the ways that you as church members are connecting with each other, the ministries that you're starting, the love that you are sharing with those that you know and those that you don't. They're blown away by all the creativity that they're seeing. And they're truly humbled for the ways in which you're thanking them, specifically for the things that they have done, for the ways that they have ministered to you. They so appreciate the grace and encouragement that you have given them. So church members, on behalf of all the ministers, thank you. We at CBF want to continue and support you in your church. We've created a new website, cbf.net/boldfaith. On there, we've made resources available that hopefully will help you during these strange days. We are also here for you. If you need to have a conversation partner, if you're looking for a peer learning group, if you'd like to brainstorm ways of doing church, if you'd like to create a new, innovative way of doing missions, if you just need a listening ear, we are here for you. Church members, ministers, we see you. We see the good and faithful work you are doing, and we are grateful for you and for all the ways that you are telling the story of God's love.
Cooperative Baptists around the globe, I want to take you back in time to January 2020 in Huntsville, Alabama. That MLK weekend, I had the unique opportunity to explore this concept of bold faithfulness with a group of curious youth. While we were in discussions, I asked them to write their own definition for bold faithfulness. And one of the youth came up with this. He said, "Bold faithfulness is complete disregard for personal pride in exchange for complete trust in God." Wow. It was a holy moment. The group audibled with this, wow, that's it. We kept going on with our discussion, but the moment made me think about a verse that is near and dear to my heart. It's a verse that a man who lived bold faith every day, my grandfather, it's a verse that he lived by and that I aspire to live by in my own walk of bold faith. It comes from the 2nd chapter of Philippians. Hear these words. "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interest, but to the interest of others." So, aspiring bold Baptist, here's my challenge for you. How do you define bold faith? And once you have your definition, understanding it evolves. Think of the people who live bold faith in the ways that you have defined bold faith. And if they're still alive, reach out and have a conversation. Thank them for the ways that they have mentored you or inspired you. And if they're not alive, send up a prayer of gratitude and love for the ways that they have touched you in your own walk of bold faith.